Hi everyone. Okay, so in this session we're going to be doing a breaking down of a capital raise. Now this was an announcement yesterday that came out in the AFR, and it was basically reported by Yolanda Redrup, and it talks, the headline actually says, big name VCs pile into digital twin company, NEARA. Now I hope I said that right. So in the article it goes to highlight that a little known Australian tech company has scored most of the country's electricity distributors and transmitters as clients and banked a $7.25 million cash injection for some of the nation's top venture capital funds. Now, what I want to do is I want to break this down in terms of the different elements that we actually look for in a company. And the purpose of doing that is then how to actually go and explain your business and to give you an idea that, because the AFR is read by literally the audience that you're going to be having a conversation with. And when they break down this type of opportunity, it provides clues for you about how to actually position your business. Now, you may not have all of these elements, but whatever you do have, they're the things you want to be communicating to the marketplace. Okay, so the first part is it goes to actually highlight what the actual company does, right? And that's always important. It's in a simplified way, and it said literally you're keeping that less than 60 characters, 60 words of what it actually explains, but it's very simplified and it's very clear. And also it's highlighting what its previous name was. Now, what it then goes on to do, now this is obviously going to be a B2B company, so they're obviously dealing with enterprises. Now, the first part of this, it talks about how complex it is, etc. Now, in here, the first thing that they're highlighting is who is actually going into the round. Now, one of the things we talk about is the bandwagon effect when it comes to capital raising. Now, you can see that the funding has come from Square Peg, it's come from Scott Farquhar and Kim Jackson's Skip Capital, and also Mike Cannon-Brookes has gone in, right? So obviously the three have come together and done the deal together, and it's talking about US potential. Now, that obviously makes sense, given obviously Atlassian is obviously a listed company in the US and obviously built a lot of networks over there. Now, as you sort of scroll down, that's the first part. So you think about it from a company's perspective, they're talking about who the investors are that are going into the actual round, right? It also goes on to talk about what is the actual problem that they're solving, right? And then obviously there's a quote highlighting that, but firstly, it's kicking off is, here is what the solution is, but then next article, here is what the problem is, right? Now, once again, it's just really simplified and it's clear to understand. It said, the company's technologies has been used during the floods in New South Wales to determine where electricity companies need to quickly cut off power and which assets are needed to be inspected. Now, that's important just for a clear distinction on what the actual challenges is. What the actual challenge is. And then here's the other part where it's highlighting about if you want to make that decision across millions of assets and you can't do it quickly, right? So what it's really highlighting is that software is going to play a role in basically helping to simplify decision makings across millions of bits of information, right? Now, if you think about it, that's obviously what governments around the world are going to be facing when it comes to disaster situations, right? Like what we had with the recent floods. Also, highlighting about the recent flood in New South Wales is a very key point because it's something that everyone remembers very clearly where it rained non-stop for an entire week. Okay, now the next part, when we talk about B2B, being able to mention brand name clients is super important because it highlights that there's been a procurement process done with the company. Now, so as you're breaking this down, you can see that effectively, NEARA's first big client was New South Wales state-owned electricity infrastructure company, Essential Energy. It now counts others, including United Energy and also Western Power. Now, so they're the kind of things that really grab people's attention. So it's already got 3 blue chip state government or government sort of backed contracts in place already, assuming the other 2 are government backed. So, but still, you get the idea. They've already got some big clients, brand name clients that they can actually leverage off to start with. Now, the next part we're always talking about is, it's great to mention blue chip clients. The next part that's great to highlight is what are the metrics that are relevant to this from a company standpoint. And in this next line, it highlights that. In the past year, he claimed that revenue had tripled and the company is set to double its workforce from 25 to 50. Okay, now that is super important because it said for any investor, them walking in the door, right, to go and have a chat with Skip Capital, Square Peg, and to have that conversation, to be able to say that we have got 3 blue chip clients and our revenue is growing at 300% is a phenomenal opening line, right? When you're talking to any potential investor. because also then it goes to highlight that we've seen strong product adoption. Now that's of course why you're talking about that sort of level of revenue growth, because you're highlighting traction. You're highlighting that the software, the technology that you have built has got traction from the marketplace. And that also highlights to the opportunity. Now, the next line goes on to say is, as well as expanding overseas, Mr. Denalatos, hope I said that right, says NEARA's product would work for all assets and requires management as we expand into fields such as underground infrastructure. Now, what's important about that is it's saying, okay, well, this is what the company's working on now, but this is what the company is going to be working on in the future. We have product market traction already. We're already a high growth business. However, we still see the opportunity like this, and this is why. So not only can we go to expand to other countries with our software, but also there's other markets which our software is which our technology is relevant for. Now this is important. Whether you're a software business or any type of business, it's super important, right, to be able to highlight, what that opportunity is for investors and what that potentially looks like. Now, obviously, the next part that I think is a really cool part of this article, it says Skip Capital founder Kim Jackson said she knew from her previous experience as a director of infrastructure companies such as Transgrid and Electronet how much value a solution like NEARA could add to these companies. Now, what's super important about that is you're highlighting that here is someone that understands this industry really, really well at a high detail level, understands the problem that already exists in that space, and now they also understand what the potential is for this solution, right? So for them, going to have any future conversations with investors or going to have conversations with for future commercial partners, I said that is super clear that the people that are not only invested, not only are they providing capital, but they understand the space incredibly well. Once again, these are all trust and confidence signals that go out to potential investors when you're actually having a discussion with them. And the next part that it's really highlighting is that with NEARA, we found a deeply technical team addressing a problem that's quite literally about keeping the lights on in life-saving infrastructure, right? So I said, that is what's so beautiful about that is it's a one-line statement that absolutely clearly identifies what the problem and the solution that they actually have. So I hope that sort of provides a bit more of a breakdown. When we're always talking about these capital raising brand elements, I'm going to be going through more and more articles like this over time because I want to pull out the key points which I think are super relevant. What I would have loved to have understood from this article is how long they actually knew each other before the investment was done. Like for example, I'd love to understand if and also who led the round, right? Because that's always interesting to know. But for example, they could have been actually chatting to each other. They could have been discussing this for 6 months, for 12 months, for 18 months, but you don't quite know from this article. But as I said, what's important is that effectively, all those few key elements that are highlighted from a capital raising brand perspective, as founders, we need to identify what those are relevant for us and explain it as eloquently as what it has been explained in this actual article. So hope that's helpful for your own capital raising processes, and I'll obviously be providing more of these capital raising breakdowns.